Ethan adjusted his glasses nervously as he walked through the crowded school hallway, clutching his books tightly to his chest. He had mastered the art of invisibility, slipping between the throngs of students without drawing attention. It wasn't that he wanted to disappear, he simply feared what would happen if he didn't. Especially if Liam was nearby. Liam. His name carried weight in the school, a mix of admiration and fear. With his tall, broad-shouldered frame and sharp blue eyes, he commanded every room he entered. To most, he was the confident leader of his group of friends, the one who could charm teachers and terrify peers in equal measure. To Ethan, he was a shadow that lingered too close, a storm that disrupted his carefully constructed peace. For years, Liam had made Ethan his favorite target, mocking his quiet demeanor and studious nature. Yet lately, something had shifted. "Hey Ethan," Liam's voice cut through the din like a blade, sending a chill down Ethan's spine. He froze mid-step, his instincts screaming at him to keep walking. Before he could decide, Liam was already in front of him, a sly grin playing on his lips. "Liam," Ethan muttered, not meeting his eyes. "What do you want?" Liam tilted his head, pretending to ponder the question. "You're always so quick to assume I want something. Can't a guy just say hi?" His tone was light, but there was something unsettling in the way his gaze lingered on Ethan's face. "I'm late for class," Ethan lied, sidestepping him. He felt Liam's hand brush his arm, a fleeting touch, but enough to set his nerves on edge. As he hurried away, Ethan's mind raced. There was something different about Liam lately, a subtle shift in his demeanor. His taunts had become less biting, his presence more intense. Ethan couldn't decide if it was a relief or something far worse. When he reached the safety of the library, Ethan let out a shaky breath. The quiet, dimly lit space was his refuge, a place where he could lose himself in books and forget the world outside. As he settled into a corner seat, his thoughts turned to Daniel, his boyfriend. Daniel's warm smile and steady reassurance were the only things that grounded him. He deserved to know about Liam's growing interest, or obsession, but Ethan couldn't bring himself to admit it, not yet. The sound of footsteps broke his reverie. Ethan looked up, his heart sinking as Liam appeared in the doorway. His grin was gone, replaced by an expression Ethan couldn't read. "You didn't think I'd let you off that easily, did you?" Liam said, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. Ethan's pulse quickened as Liam stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking with every step. For the first time, Ethan saw something in Liam's eyes that frightened him more than malice, longing. "Ethan," Liam said quietly, his tone tinged with an unfamiliar sincerity. "You don't know the half of it." Ethan's breath hitched, the tension in the room suffocating. For all his attempts to avoid confrontation, he realized there was no escaping Liam now. Not this time. Ethan returned to the library that evening, the familiar hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of aged paper offering a fragile sense of comfort. He told himself it was just to finish his homework, but the nervous energy in his chest betrayed him. His thoughts were a tangled mess of questions he couldn't bring himself to answer. Why had Liam followed him earlier? Why did his words feel like something more than just another taunt? He settled into his usual corner, opening his notebook and pretending to focus. Minutes passed, the silence broken only by the scratching of his pen. But then a shadow fell over the page. Ethan looked up, his heart dropping. Liam stood before him, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets, his expression unreadable. Ethan stiffened, gripping the edges of the table. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, his voice quieter than he intended. "Relax," Liam said, his tone softer than Ethan expected. "I'm not here to mess with you." Ethan's brow furrowed. Liam never spoke like this. "Then what do you want?" Liam pulled out the chair across from him, sitting down without waiting for an invitation. His usual smirk was absent, replaced by a faint crease of uncertainty on his brow. "You think you know me, don't you?" he said, leaning forward. "The school bully. The jerk who makes your life miserable." Ethan scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "You make it pretty easy to think that." For a moment, Liam said nothing. He simply studied Ethan as though trying to find the right words. "Maybe I am that guy," he said finally. "But that's not all I am." Ethan shook his head, incredulous. "Why are you telling me this?" Liam's jaw tightened. Because I'm tired of pretending. He hesitated, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You're the only one who makes me feel like I don't have to. Ethan blinked, stunned. His mind raced to make sense of Liam's words, but before he could respond, Liam continued. I see you, Ethan. You don't belong in this place any more than I do. You're different, and that scares the hell out of me. The raw honesty in Liam's voice left Ethan speechless. He felt the air between them grow heavier, charged with something unspoken. I shouldn't feel this way, Liam admitted, his hands curling into fists on the table. But I do. Ethan's pulse quickened as Liam's gaze locked onto his, intense and unwavering. Liam, he began, but his voice faltered. Before he could say more, Liam stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I shouldn't have come, he muttered, turning away. But as he reached the doorway, he paused, looking back over his shoulder. Think about what I said. And then he was gone, leaving Ethan in the suffocating quiet, his world forever altered. Ethan couldn't focus. The words in his textbook blurred into meaningless shapes as his mind replayed Liam's confession over and over again. It was as though the foundations of his world had shifted, leaving him unsteady, unsure. He felt trapped between two impossible truths, the unwavering loyalty of Daniel, his boyfriend, and the raw, unfiltered intensity he'd seen in Liam's eyes. Daniel's voice broke through his thoughts. Ethan? Are you okay? Ethan looked up to see Daniel's familiar smile, his brown eyes warm and steady. They were sitting on the bleachers after school, a ritual of theirs to unwind and talk. Normally, this was Ethan's safe space, but today, it felt like the walls were closing in. Yeah, I'm fine, Ethan lied, forcing a weak smile. You've been distant lately, Daniel said, concern softening his voice. He reached for Ethan's hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. You know that, right? Ethan nodded, but guilt clawed at his chest. Daniel didn't deserve this, his patience, his love, his trust. And yet, the memory of Liam's words lingered, an unwelcome ghost haunting every corner of his mind. Later that evening, as Ethan walked home, the sound of footsteps behind him sent a jolt through his body. He turned to see Liam, his silhouette illuminated by the orange glow of the streetlights. You've been avoiding me, Liam said, his voice calm but tinged with frustration. Ethan clenched his fists, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and unease. What do you expect, Liam? You can't just say things like that and expect everything to go back to normal. Liam took a step closer, his presence magnetic and overwhelming. You think I wanted this? He said, his tone sharper now. You think I wanted to feel this way about you? Ethan's breath caught. The vulnerability in Liam's voice was like a knife, cutting through his defenses. This has to stop, Ethan whispered, more to himself than to Liam. I can't stop, Liam said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Not when I know you feel it too. Ethan's eyes widened. What are you talking about? You don't have to say it, Liam replied, his gaze piercing. I saw it in your eyes that day in the library. You felt it. And you're lying to yourself if you say otherwise. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, a storm of emotions raging inside him. He wanted to deny it, to push Liam away, but the words wouldn't come. Ethan, Liam said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Just tell me the truth. The silence between them was deafening. Ethan shook his head, stepping back. I can't, he said, his voice breaking. And with that he turned and walked away, leaving Liam standing alone under the streetlights. But even as he put distance between them, the weight of Liam's words hung heavy in the air, a truth Ethan could no longer ignore. Ethan sat alone in his room, the dim glow of his desk lamp casting long shadows on the walls. His phone buzzed on the table, Daniel's name flashing across the screen. He hesitated, staring at it as if the call itself carried the weight of his guilt. Swiping it aside, he leaned back in his chair, letting out a long, unsteady breath. He had spent days trying to untangle his feelings, but every attempt only left him more confused. Daniel was everything he should want, kind, supportive, unwavering. But Liam was chaos, a force that unsettled him in ways he couldn't explain, couldn't escape. The knock on his window startled him. His heart raced as he turned to see Liam standing outside, his face shadowed but unmistakable. Ethan hesitated before sliding the window open, the cold night air rushing in. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, his voice low but sharp. "I needed to see you," Liam said, climbing through without waiting for an invitation. His presence filled the room, his gaze locking onto Ethan's. "You can't just show up like this," Ethan protested, though his voice lacked conviction. Liam stepped closer, his expression a mix of determination and vulnerability. "I couldn't wait anymore. I needed to know where we stand." "There is no we," Ethan said, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Liam's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "You're lying to yourself. I see it every time you look at me." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. Instead, he turned away, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. "This isn't fair," he whispered, his voice trembling. "To Daniel. To me. To you." Liam moved closer, his voice softening. "I'm not asking you to make a decision right now. I just need you to be honest, with me and with yourself." Ethan turned to face him, his chest tight with the weight of everything unsaid. "What do you want from me, Liam?" "I want the truth," Liam said simply. "Even if it's not what I want to hear." The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally Ethan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what the truth is anymore." Liam nodded, the faintest hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Then I'll wait." Ethan's breath hitched. "Liam?" "No," Liam said, cutting him off gently. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I'm here. Whenever you're ready." He stepped back toward the window, his gaze lingering on Ethan for a moment longer before disappearing into the night. Ethan sat down heavily, his head in his hands. His phone buzzed again, Daniel's name lighting up the screen. With trembling hands, he picked it up, staring at it for a long moment before pressing answer. "Hey," he said, his voice uneven but resolute. "We need to talk." And in that moment, Ethan realized that whatever happened next, he couldn't keep running.